I can come to the table, be as creative as I want to be, create all the things I want to create, the products, the offers, the content, and I don't have to think, does this align with the goals of the company? Is my boss going to be upset that I'm doing this? Should I really be working on something else? Never comes to mind. You know why? Because I get to make the rules. And I like that. I like that a lot. It might be common, but it's a mistake to think that a business is risky, but a job is safe. In fact, I like the way Justin Welsh puts it when he says, when you have a job, your personal services are marketed to one customer, your employer. And that's exactly wholly and completely true. When you have a job, your personal services basically go to your employer, who has way too much control over how your services are received, how they're compensated. But so many people still believe that a job provides job security or income security, whereas a business is somehow innately risky. In this video, I want to show you why a job is actually more risky than an online business. Not any business, but the type of business that we talk about on this channel. An online business where you actually have way less risk and way more freedom and autonomy than you would ever have in any job. And I'm going to get into why that is. And then I'm going to get into how you can pursue that type of freedom even while you still have a job. Maybe you're trying to escape the job that you have. Maybe you're trying to build something on the side so that you're not so bound to your one employer who happens to be your one customer of all that you have to offer in the workplace. If you want to change that and put the ball more in your court and get more control over your future and your destiny and really your income, then this video is for you. My name's Lane. I love to help aspiring digital entrepreneurs start and grow their passive income style online businesses. So if you're new here, go to lanesebring.com/supersimple. Pick up my free super simple guide to your first $500 online. In that, you're gonna find the exact steps that I took to start and grow what now is a multiple six-figure online business. So everything I'm saying in this video, I'm actually doing with two businesses completely online. I left my job 3.5 years ago, have never looked back, and I can tell you, having a job is way more risky than having an online business. And in this video, we're gonna get into all the reasons why. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. When you have a job, your services are offered to one customer, your employer, and that one customer has way too much control. They determine way too many things. And I want to go through some of the things that they determine and why they are so risky innately. The first thing they determine is what your services are worth. Now, you could say, well, I could always just go to a different employer who values my services more, but they're still determining what your services are worth. And their job is always going to be to pay you the least amount of money that it takes to retain you. So it's always going to be a race to the bottom. And if you want a substantial increase in pay, you almost always have to uproot yourself and move to an entirely different company, which can be very disruptive in your life. You have to completely start over with a whole new set of circumstances, people to work with, bosses, people that work for you, the whole thing. And it's just way too much control placed in someone else's hands. Now, if you're like me, you're going, well, but in business, the market determines what your services are worth. Yes, but it's not just one employer or one customer determining what your services are worth. It's spread out among many, many different people, which means that you get to now determine how broad you want to go and how deep you want to go, how many people you want to serve and how well you want to serve them. And a whole lot more control is placed in your court. But we'll get into that a little bit more later in the video. Next, they determine how much of your time they can demand. This is one of the things that I absolutely love about online business, is that I get to determine how my time is spent, where I spend my time, how I spend my time, and no one gets to demand my time from me, except for me, right? Or my kids. My kids demand a lot of my time, but I actually do that voluntarily. I'm not in a work situation where anyone can say, you must respond, you must be here, because I only do the things that I want to do, and I only do the things that I agree to do. When I had a job, my employer could demand a lot from me. And if you've ever had a salaried position, you know that the work is basically unending and it never stops. And if you want to get the job done and you want to be in their good graces, you kind of have to show up when you're needed and get the job done. And in online business, I just don't have that pressure. They determine when you can be off. This is one of the things that drove me the most crazy about having a job, and that was having to ask another person for time off. Like, as a grown man, having to be like, hey, is it okay if I take some time and go spend it with my family in another state at the beach? Like, I hated that. I detested it to no end. And I don't care that that's normal. And I don't care that it's what most people live with. I didn't want that life. And so in a job, every single time I had to submit for PTO, I always told myself, I can't do this forever. This is not the life I want. And if that resonates with you, there is a path out, but you have to get very clear about the fact that you don't like it, right? That kind of holy discontent has to well up inside of you, because here's the thing. Some people are fine with it. Some people are like, yeah, it's cool. It's just the way it is. I don't care. I never was like that. It always bothered me. And if it bothers you, I'm telling you, you don't have to live that way. It's only a matter of putting in the right work over the right amount of time with the right plan, and you can set yourself free. But when you have a job, they can determine when you can be off. And if you're anything like me, I just hated that. They determine when you can be interrupted to serve their demands. Oh, I hated this. I hated when I would be like at dinner with my family and I would get a text, or I'd happen to look at my phone and see a text, and it'd be from work. It'd be from somebody that works for me. It'd be from my boss. It'd be somebody that works with me. It'd be some fire that we need to put out. It'd be some problem that needed to be solved. And often I couldn't solve the problem in that moment, but you know what I had to do? I had to think about it, right? It had to be on my mind. I had to be stressed about it. I had to be taken away from the situation I was in and placed back in a frame of mind at work, and I hated that. So I had to respond to texts. I had to answer phone calls. I had to respond to emails. I had to sometimes jump on meetings at night or on the weekend, or even when I was away on vacation. Sometimes I was called into things that I didn't want to be called into, and that absolutely never happens in my online business. I just don't let it happen. You know why? Because I'm the boss. So I get to determine when I'm available and when I'm not. And because I have way more than one customer, if any one customer doesn't like my boundaries that I've set up, okay, fine. I just won't work with them anymore. Totally fine. No hard feelings. It's not a problem. But when that person is your employer and is your sole source of income, it changes the dynamic. And it puts you in a way less powerful position. Which leads to the last thing that I'll mention that they get to determine, and that is when your services are no longer needed. When you have an employer who is your one customer, to a large degree, you are expendable. It's just the way it is. They get to say at some point, we just don't need you anymore. And when that happens, a lot of times your entire livelihood goes with it. Because if you're one customer that your personal services are sold to is your employer, and your employer flips the switch and says you're no longer needed, that's it. You got to go find another customer who will then be your employer. But for that period of time, you are in a place that is incredibly risky and incredibly vulnerable. So in that situation, you are effectively at the whims of another person, their opinion of you, and your favorability with them. And that is innately risky. And that's what I want you to see with this. I hate the narrative that says, oh yeah, businesses, they're risky, they fail. Jobs, they're safe because you have a steady paycheck that you can depend on. There is some truth to the steady paycheck. And in business, you have to set up things that are recurring so that you can have recurring revenue that you can depend on. But once you get through a few certain things that you've set up and you're working your business and it's profitable, the risk diminishes exponentially. Whereas at a job, the more you make, the more of a hold they have on you, because the more you have to lose. So the more you are at their whims and the more you are connected to whatever it takes to win their favor. And if you're like me, you hate that. I just hated it because I didn't want to have to live that way. So those are all the things that I think make a job risky because of what your employer gets to determine. But let's contrast that with an online business. In an online business, you can basically invert that equation, where your services are no longer sold to a single employer, but now they're marketed to a much larger pool of potential buyers. Let's call it your online audience. And if you do this the way I teach, this actually spreads out across hundreds and even thousands of people so that there is no one person who can shut your whole thing down. And because of this, you have way more autonomy in this exchange. And because of that, it is way less risky. I want to get into 3 reasons why having an online business actually reduces your risk compared to having a job. That having a job is way more risky, and having an online business is going to be way more safe. But we're not really going for safe, we're going for freedom and autonomy. That's what we want. And if you want that, I'm going to argue these 3 things are why you should lean towards having an online business over having your job. Now, for those of you who are like, I like my job, I think it's great, I still think there's something in here for you, because if you build an online business on the side that is generating some revenue, you can totally keep your job. There's room for both. But what it does to you is it makes you more independent. It makes you less needy of your job and the income it provides, which gives you more freedom and more autonomy. So whether you're looking down the road and saying, I want to escape my 9 to 5, I need to set myself free, or you're just saying, I would love to make some money on the side, there's a place for you in this, because both are great. Both lead to less risk and more freedom in life. So there are 3 things. We're going to get into them right now. The first thing is, when you have an online business, no one customer can shut your business down. When you lose a job, you often lose your sole source of income. But in business, when you lose a customer, you only lose a percentage of your revenue. And when you serve people at scale, like in online business, that percentage shrinks over time and becomes immaterial and almost completely irrelevant. What I mean is, if you're serving thousands of paying customers and one person says, I don't like you anymore, you don't even notice it. And it's not that you're callous and don't care, it's that you have a vision. You're going after a very targeted group of people who are going to respond to you and going to want what you're offering. And you're very clear about who that is. And a lot of people are going to opt out of that. And that's great. That's totally fine. It's part of it. But the people who opt in, if you do it right, are going to be all you need, and spread out over all those people, it just becomes way less risky than one employer who can just say you're no longer needed and shut down your entire income. In online business, there's no one customer who can do that. And this is why I love online business, because if you show up consistently with consistent, helpful, relevant content that reaches out and grabs your target audience and pulls them in and shows to them that you have something valuable to offer that they need, that will solve their problems, your content is doing the heavy lifting for you. So if there's someone who doesn't respond to that, cool. The people who do respond to it are going to be all that you need. And what's really empowering is when you realize that you can fire customers. Like, that's a thing. You can just say, no, I don't need to work with you. You can totally do that. It's totally up to you. And that is a much different, less risky place to be than just having a job. Number 2, no one customer can demand your time whenever they want. You make the rules when it comes to your availability. And as for me, I walk away from my work whenever I want, and I'm never interrupted by it, ever. Why? Because that's how I've set it up. This was not the case when I had an employer. My phone was basically a tether to which I was always expected to be connected. And that connection was expected night and day, 7 days a week. And I actually loathed that I could not escape the deluge of text, emails, and phone calls that I would get that I could just never escape from. And I didn't make the rules. I couldn't say I'm just not going to respond because it was expected of me in my position. It just so happens that in my online business, because I'm the boss, I gave myself a better position. Number 3, and this is perhaps one of the most valuable and my favorite distinction between a job and a business, is this: no customer can tell you what or what not to create or work on. You get to determine what you create in your online business. You get to determine what you work on. You get to determine what you don't create, and you get to determine what you don't work on. It is completely and entirely up to you. I remember when I had a job having so much pressure to do things that I wasn't really good at, but my position required those things. I also remember having things that I was good at that I would feel guilty because they kind of sometimes fell outside of my position, but I was really good at them. They gave me so much energy, but then I would think, well, I got to go back and do this other thing that I'm not that good at because that's what's expected of me. In online business, you get to manage around all that so that you never have to do the things that are not within your unique ability. This is a process that you develop over time, and it's a skill that you develop, and I'm always trying to work on this, but the key distinction is that I get to make the decision. I can come to the table, be as creative as I want to be, create all the things I want to create, the products, the offers, the content, and I don't have to think, does this align with the goals of the company? Is my boss going to be upset that I'm doing this? Should I really be working on something else? Never comes to mind. You know why? Because I get to make the rules. And I like that. I like that a lot. And because of all this, when you have an online business, the only limitation is you. You can make content about what you love. You can build products that you know will serve your audience. You can make offers that you know will help people. You get to decide from start to finish what you pour yourself into. And because you only get one life to live, you might as well do the things that fire you up and serve your goals than just live at the whims of some arbitrary standard set by you from someone else. But even with all that, so many people believe that jobs are safe and business is risky. So they put all their eggs in the one customer basket, the employer basket. And they just hope that they'll meet all the demands, that they'll put up with what they have to put up with, and they'll make the money that they need to make so that they can retire and die. That's not the vision that I have for my life. And I'm guessing if you've made it this far in this video, it's probably not the vision that you have for your life either. So if you want out of the riskiness of having your job be your sole source of income, I've coached hundreds of people through the process of escape, aka starting an online business. It is the best way that I know to mitigate the risk of having a job and set up a business that is innately not as risky as having a job. Consider this. What if instead of expending all your energy on one customer, your employer, who can just get rid of you at a moment's notice because you're no longer needed, when you could invest in yourself and instead have an impact on multiple hundreds, even thousands of people, and with even less energy expended on your part because of the magic of the internet, that your work is fixed, but the impact of your work scales disproportionate to the amount of work that's there. And what if the amount of money you could make far exceeded anything any one employer would ever pay you? And there's no upper limit on that income because it really is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them, which again is completely up to you. And if you're tempted to believe that this isn't possible, I'm living this life every day. And so are the hundreds of people that I've coached through this process. It is possible. It starts with wanting it and then making a plan to see it happen. So the way I do it and the way I've coached hundreds of people through it is not rocket science. It's simply taking something that you know, something that you have experience with, and showing other people how to do that thing. And doing that online and offering products that go along with that. You show them how to do it through your content, like what we're doing here, and then you offer them paid products to go even deeper with you to learn that. And this happens across the board in any niche you can imagine. My main online business, I help pastors preach with confidence and clarity. Having been a pastor for 15 years, I saw a need to help pastors stand up and preach with confidence and clarity, both when they prepare and when they get up and preach and when they evaluate their sermons. So I started an online business called Preaching Donkey, and I help hundreds and thousands of pastors preach like they've never preached before. That is a very niched audience. It doesn't apply to most people, okay? It doesn't even apply to most pastors because not every pastor preaches. There's a lot of pastors that don't preach. So it's a very targeted niche audience, but I've been able to reach them with consistent, helpful, relevant content. And then I've offered them products that take them deeper in their journey. And that's turned into an amazing online business for me. In my personal brand here at Sebring, I help people who want to start online businesses but are a little bit confused by all the steps involved. I help them simplify the process, identify what their skill is, what their experience is, find the people who want to learn that thing, and develop a content plan which will build their audience of people up, reach them, put them through their sales funnel, and offer them their products. Between those two businesses, I'm doing the very thing that I'm talking about in this video. And it's not nearly as risky as when I had a job and I was subject to the whims of one employer. So my question for you is, have you started an online business yet? And if not, what is your first step to starting? I can help you with this. If you go to lanesebring.com/supersimple, you could pick up my guide, which is really designed for people who have an idea that they want to start an online business. They just need the steps. That's a great place to start. And if you have already started, what is your next step? The path from where you are in life currently to where you want to be is merely a set of steps to take in the right direction. And if you want an ongoing, consistent guide which will help you with those steps, be sure to subscribe to this newsletter. This YouTube video is also a newsletter called the Six Figure Fast Lane. You can subscribe to get the written version of this over at lanesebring.com/supersimple, the same place you go to get my super simple guide. Subscribe to the Six Figure Fast Lane. Be a part of what we're doing here because I'm with you every step of the way to help you take what's inside of you and build a business that's going to be far less risky than anything you would ever do for a single employer. That's what you want in life. I'm here to help you, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. Right now, go ahead and click on this playlist where I'll walk through some of the biggest things that I did in my business to make it grow over time. Click right there, and I'll see you in that playlist.